Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Eric Pennington, and I'm with the Spirit of EQ. And joining me tonight is one of our partners, Jeff East with Spirit of EQ. Greetings,
Hello,
Jeff.
everyone.
And we'll start off with a little bit of housekeeping and kind of tell you where we're headed and what we're shooting to accomplish with you in the next couple of days. The first one, I would ask you if you could please mute yourself. That will help with background noise and distractions and things like that. And when there is a point in time when speaking sort of as a group or individually, we'll just call out to unmute yourself. But primarily the chat will be a key way for communication. And there will be some times, because we try to make these sessions very interactive for you. There'll be times where we'll ask for your thoughts about something that maybe you've seen or you observed or a subject or whatnot in order to help reinforce what we're learning. The other thing is that, and Jeff and I do place this as a high value, this is something we strive to do at each time we do any type of webinar or workshop, and that is that this is a psychologically safe environment. And what we mean by that is that you should never feel that you are compelled to share what you don't feel comfortable sharing. You should not feel that in some way, if you don't participate or if you don't have an answer, that somehow you're looked at negatively. We hope you'll interact and share, and we hope that you'll help your fellow classmates as well along the road here and further down. But again, it's important for us to establish a place where we can feel comfortable in our learning and sharing. The other thing is, this is the beginning. We'd love to tell you that we've got some magic pixie ducks that we've installed into all of your hardware, and after 2 days, you're going to just be super emotionally intelligent. We hope that you will continue the journey beyond the next 2 evenings because it is a growth path. But I can tell you from experience, it will change your life for the better. And I know Jeff would agree with me in that. We've seen it over and over and over again. There's actually only one group of people that it won't work for, and that's for those that don't want to work on it. So it's really kind of straightforward, you know? If you're willing to work on yourself, you'll be successful. If you're not, well, this may be just an exercise, but I have great confidence that you guys are in that group of wanting to work on yourselves and get better.
Can I add one thing, Eric?
Absolutely.
And this is not an overnight process. The other thing we like to emphasize is, like anything else you want to get better with, you have to practice. So just keep that in mind as you go through this.
Yep. Great. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll get started. And we'll take a look at some things we've put together to begin with. The first thing I will tell you, tonight's class is going to be on unlocking EQ. And with that is we've looked at this through other workshops that we've done and found that this is a good starting point. It's a good place to begin the journey. Now, we do realize that because of the diversity of the group that's on, you may have a good working knowledge of EQ. You may even be someone who's very familiar. You may have studied some things about it. And maybe this might be your first experience with it. So we start here to begin the journey to help you be in a position where you can grow. Because the one thing about emotional intelligence, or as we call it EQ, it is learnable. It is dynamic in nature. So once again, as I mentioned earlier, virtually anyone can do this and tackle this and grow in it if they want to put the work in. The other thing that I would tell you is that as we move through this process, have a spirit of curiosity and not of judgment. And the reason why I say it to you like that is that your growth and learning will happen the more curious that you are. And if you encounter some things that make you uncomfortable or maybe are a little prickly in nature, instead of judging it, maybe as I mentioned, take an approach of, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to allow myself an opportunity to explore what this is or what I'm feeling or what it may say. Judgment is okay, but judgment should come after you've exhausted curiosity. So as we begin, let's think about that in terms of unlocking what we define as EQ or emotional intelligence. So Jeff, I'm going to let you begin. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm getting myself confused already, and it's early. So I'm going to rely on Jeff to keep me straight, guys. So what you see here is pretty obvious, right? It's an iceberg. And one of the things that's really fascinating about an iceberg is that only a small portion of the iceberg actually is seen above the surface. I believe it's somewhere like 1/10 or 1/11 of an average iceberg is visible to the human eye. The largest portion of the iceberg is below the surface. So think about yourselves in that regard. If I were around you for a given period of time, extended period of time, I would be able to see some things about you. I might be able to look at your background based on what you've told me, where you're from, what your interests are, maybe sports or music. And I might be able to gain some understanding about, well, that's kind of who you are. But beneath the surface is a lot more. And that's something that sometimes gets revealed over time as trust grows, and sometimes it's hidden for extended periods of time, maybe not to be seen by those in the outside world. What we are doing is beginning a journey beneath the surface to try to unlock emotional intelligence. And you're going to hear this on more than one occasion over the next 2 nights, that emotional intelligence, the simple definition of it is managing your thoughts and your emotions to make optimal decisions. Because emotions, as you probably realize, are what drive people. It's what drives behavior. It's typically what drives the stuff that's above the surface. So it's a deep dive, right? And that can make some people a little nervous. But fear not. Jeff and I work really hard at making, again, these environments safe. But it's okay to go beneath the surface, to go examine some of those things. And again, a lot of those are rooted in emotions and their connection to different thoughts. I'll give you just a brief example, just to help kind of place some context around this. Imagine that you're driving on a freeway near where you live or close by, and it's a morning rush hour, and you're on your way to school or to your work, a job, whatever it may be, and you're traveling at about 65 miles an hour. Everything's going great. And then an SUV cuts you off in traffic, making you swerve over to the side and having to slam on your brakes before hitting the car in that lane. You're going to have a thought. More than likely, it's going to be, oh my gosh, I almost got in an accident. That guy almost caused me to get in an accident. And then comes an emotion. Some people are going to get angry. They're going to use certain select words to describe how they feel about the person that cut them off. Some people might even go more aggressive. They may say, I'm going to follow that person. There are going to be people who are going to feel fear. It might paralyze them. The most emotionally intelligent people are the ones that are able to manage that kind of situation, and multiple ones that flow through the day in a very efficient manner. Because the better you are at managing that, the better decisions you're going to make. And the better decisions you make typically will deliver better outcomes. So as we go beneath the surface tonight and tomorrow, think of it as an opportunity. Again, think of it as, man, if I use my curiosity, I can figure out, wow, what do I do when I encounter a certain emotion, whether it's anger, fear, joy, apprehension, disgust, whatever it may be. And just begin small, just to be curious. All right, so that I am in my zone, I'm going to kick this over to Jeff, who's going to talk a bit about something that we all know is happening. Jeff?
Yeah, we are in the middle of a lot of change with what's going on with COVID, and just everything is happening in our country right now, or actually in the world. Now, I love these old maps. If you look at some old maps that before they really knew what the world was like, and how big it was and where everything was, at the edge of some of these maps there would be some warning, and it would say, "Beyond here be dragons," to tell you that there's something that's kind of scary or something like that beyond there, which basically they're saying is they didn't know what was there. They'd never been there before. Nobody's explored it. Nobody was able to write down, draw it out as a map. And we're kind of in that situation now where we're being, I was going to say asked, but that's not the right word. We're being pushed, sometimes unwillingly, into areas that we're not used to. And it is okay to be worried about those dragons that we have, but there's going to be change. And being emotionally intelligent is one of the first things, one of the first tools you can have to deal with this change, because it'll allow you to examine what is going on with you and around you. So there are dragons, but you have some tools so that you don't have to be afraid of them. So Eric, if you can go to the next slide. So we're going to play a video. I hope you guys are all familiar with Rush. It's probably my top band of all time. Eric is also a big fan of them. Eric and I are both bass players, so we hardly get through anything that we do together without having something to do with music. If you listen to our podcast, it's almost in every one of them. But in my opinion, Neil Peart was one of the Peart, I always got to say it right, best drummers of all time, from the very beginning when he started playing with Rush. He's a very interesting person. He is a very deep person. He wrote almost all their lyrics. Another common thing is we both ride motorcycles. He was a very enthusiastic motorcycle driver. But listen to what he says about drumming and what he did to improve. So Eric, if you can.
What about your relationship with drumming and how it's changed over the years? Because you've done it so long, and drumming for Rush it's not like you just do. No. I mean, there's stuff going on there, right? Yeah. So has your relationship with your the instrument changed over the years?
Enormously so, in all those inner ways that might be boring to anyone else, but I feel them strongly. And it occurred to me lately that the band, even after all these years, 36 years, we're going through changes right now as individual musicians, and thus, as a unit of musicians. And I found that part of it's been deliberate, that I've studied with teachers from time to time. And 2 years ago, I studied with the great jazz drummer, Peter Erskine. And it was mainly to learn more about big band drumming that I admire. But in the process, of course, I couldn't help learning more about drumming, and carried it with me into what I do. And the teachers that I've had in the past, I had a great old time teacher in the mid 90s that kind of helped me reinvent the way I approach the instrument, that still nourishes me now. And the inspiration of other players too, when you hear somebody play something great, old or new, it inspires you. And I found since I was a little kid, not that I wanted to imitate it, but it just made me want to play, and not I've heard some musicians say, there was a famous one of Eric Clapton saying he wanted to burn his guitar after hearing Jimi Hendrix. And the horn player wanting to smash his horn after hearing Miles Davis, that kind of thing. And I never understood that. If I hear somebody great, it makes me want to go home and play, like not out of frustration, but out of joy.
I mean, there are a lot of people who heard a Neil Peart drum when I want to smash my drums.
Well, I hear that people say, "Oh, you inspired me to take up drumming," and I said, "I'm sorry to your parents." What else can I say?
So when you go on one of these journeys and you've met new teachers and you come back, do Geddy and Alex start to panic? Like, Neil's back with a new sound. We have to. Oh God, here we go.
Of course, they're subtle and incremental, but the one big change I made in '95, where I changed the whole setup of my drums and temporarily the way I held the sticks and just dedicated myself to doing everything different. And when I first came back with the band and we were working with producer Peter Collins at the time, and he was listening to my playing on the demos and so on and say, well, it doesn't sound that much different to me. And to me, that was a compliment because I changed everything and it still sounded like me. And then when I started playing with the other guys, they did notice the clock was a subtle difference, that they had to mesh with me. And I mean, these things are indefinably subtle, but they were things that I've wanted to work on for 20 years. And I guess a good example of it is technique. I work so much with sequencers and click tracks that I became remarkably metronomic, but that had a rigidity that went with it. So my mission then became to conquer that and become looser. So if you think of a technique instrument and a feel player, those are the two differences that I tried to bridge, and I'm still trying to bridge. I want to become more improvisational because I'm compositional. And my last drum instructional video was on drum soloing. And I said I compose a solo and then perform the variations within it as a piece of music for the audience. And right at that moment I said, oh, okay, I'm a composer, but I want to be an improviser. So I started working really hard on that. And now at this point, the first half of my solo is completely improvised from the first beat through, changes that I become familiar with and come to like in the process of a night's discovery, or even in the night's warm-up, I'll come across something, oh, that's good. And it goes in the solo that night.
So for a guy that has, to adding the improvisation to your routine, when you get out on stage and you have to play and you know that the first part is completely improvised, do you get scared?
It was nervous making it first, but then you learn to protect yourself and that the second half is composed, again, for the audience's benefit.
Just get there, just get to that second half?
Well, it's never, no, I get lost in it, and I've made comparisons to exploring on the motorcycle and getting lost on roads that close. Yeah. And I wander down rhythmic areas because I do challenge myself because there are no consequences. There's no mistake. If I do something weird, play it twice and it's a new part, a jazz instrumentalist once told me.
Have you ever had the drumming solo equivalent of a motorcycle hitting a deer? Have you ever been
Good comparison, because I've certainly had that experience. But again, in soloing you can't, and that's why I'm more careful in the band's music, because the proverbial train wreck where the whole band gets lost is a nightmare. And we've, over the years, of course, evolved ways out of that. It happens to everybody. You mishear a rhythm or an echo off the back wall of the venue sometimes, could be a half beat out. And if you lose concentration for a second, you're suddenly half a beat out with the other guy. And we just look at each other and you decide, okay, go with him.
So I've got a couple questions for you with this. With the idea that Neil was recognized as one of the best drummers of all time, thinking about the idea that he needed to change, he needed to do things differently, he needed to go that area that I talked about before, about where there might be dragons. Are there any areas that you might need to change or that you would like to work on that you're thinking of right now? Is there anything that Second question is, thinking back to that video again, what emotions do you think he felt when he was deciding to do these things and then when he was doing them? Do you think he felt fear? Maybe a little angry with himself because maybe it didn't go as well as he wanted? Felt joyful because he was doing it? So think about those kind of emotions when you're making changes. What are driving you? And what are you feeling when you do it? And then he had to make some decisions in this process. He had to decide that I want to be better. I want to be a more complete drummer. And in his case, I think it was a more complete person that he was deciding to do. What is your process for doing that? And just think about that. We've got, Eric, I think we've got some people in the chat maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you guys want to go ahead and type in the chat some of your thoughts, one of those questions or all of them, whatever is most comfortable for you. And then I'll kind of read off as we go here. So we have some that have, person said that time management is an area of their life that they want to change. Another person talked about time management, organizational skills, patience. I'm with you.
I can't wait until I get patience. So when those kind of things, when you're thinking about them, just think about your motivation.
Oh, Jeff,
So-
I gotta interrupt you. I
Okay.
think this is a great one. Someone wrote sleeping habits. Sleep is so very, very important for our effectiveness in our daily life. That's a great one. Letting go of old habits that were fun. Oh, wow. Wow, that's powerful, don't you think?
Yes, fun or easy. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's one thing to give up something that you know is bad, but then you give up the thing that's fun. That requires a lot of courage. Let's see, organization and time once again. Prioritizing, okay? Overall well-being. Another one for patients.
These are very, yeah. These are the kind of things that you're talking about that can make an immense change in how you approach day-to-day life. So,
and Jeff, I'm going to throw this out to you as well as we're getting some more here. When we encounter the decision to make a change, an emotion is going to follow. And this is the power of emotional intelligence. And that is, how do we manage that emotion that follows that thought of, hey, I'm going to give up that thing that's fun because I know I need to do better, or I'm going to work on time management. Another thing as I'm looking here, unconscious bias, difficult customers, dealing with difficult employees. And another one, time management again, procrastination. So all of those are going to elicit certain emotions, right, Jeff?
Yeah, well, there's actually, the emotion is driving you to want to make those changes, which we'll get into, I think, on the next slide a little bit. If you want to go ahead to that one, Eric.
Yeah, you know, and I'm going to pause here for a second on what you just said there, because I was thinking back in the video how he talked about those times when things were not necessarily so straightforward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a powerful thing to keep in mind as you evaluate your emotions. Let me get the screen back up and we'll go to that slide, Jeff.
Okay.
And we can continue on. Okay, so there you go.
Okay. So I want to give you some basis of what emotional intelligence is, but first I need to give you the real quick definition of emotions. Emotions are completely and misunderstood by most people. When you get right down to the basics, emotions are chemicals in your brain and in your body. You have different parts of your brain. One of the most strongest is the amygdala. Some people call that the lizard brain. And it is what shows you or tells you or gives you the emotion that you're feeling. Now, I'm going to use an example. The most, okay, you're walking through the woods and having a good time, and a bear jumps out in front of you on the path. All right. That triggers that amygdala, that lizard brain, and it sends all these chemicals into your system. Your heart goes faster, the blood flow to your extremities lessens because that's a protection against bleeding out if you get injured. All these things happen, but they're there basically to tell you there is something dangerous in front of you. Fear is basically something dangerous in front of you. So it's getting you ready to do one of four things. One is to fight the bear, probably not a good idea. Another one is flight, which is to run away. You might think of freeze, which is freezing, playing dead. And then the other one that people forget about is called flock, which means I might find somebody to help me with this situation. So that's basically what emotions are. And emotions are not good or bad. They are not that way. What they are is just giving you information. It's what you learn to do with that emotion. Somebody asked what was the last one. That was flock, like a flock of birds getting together. so it's what you do with that emotion. If you feel angry, what is making you angry? You might be seeing somebody that's being abused some way. So you have two paths you can take with that anger. You can go down one path of, okay, I'm going to work and I'm going to correct this situation so that person is not getting harmed. That's a positive path. You're using that anger, that energy from that to make that decision. Or the anger could drive you, you jump right in and get into a fight with someone because of that. Not such a good path. That's what emotions basically are. The emotions of what we consider positive, joy, happiness, things like that are all basically the same thing. It's all from that part of your brain. And so what we do with emotional intelligence is we want to blend that thinking part of our brain and that feeling part of our brain, the emotions, so you can make better decisions. One of the ways that you do that, and this is the most basic, if you can wait 6 seconds after that emotion hits you, the thinking part of your brain can take back over so you can make a response instead of a reaction. If you see the 6 seconds there at the top of this page, we're a partner company of 6 seconds, and that's why they take that. And another way to look at it is, if you count to 10, that's about 6 seconds. So you can get back in control of that decision. When you're dealing with the bear, that's pretty obvious. When you're dealing with maybe a coworker, or you're dealing with some situation like that, you still can use that process. So that's what that is how emotions work. What you do with them is the important thing. Eric, did I miss anything on that?
No, I think you hit it well there, Jeff. And just keep in mind, guys, as Jeff alluded to, especially here in the United States, we've done a bad job at making it clear to people what emotions are and what they mean. It's just like anger, for example, as Jeff said, typically gets a bad rap. But if you really evaluate it, it really comes down to what do you do with that anger that makes it good or bad.
If you look at the opposite of that, joy can lead to addiction. So the emotion of joy, it depends on what you do with it. And so that's what emotions are. So emotions are not about being nice. They're not about being emotional. We all have emotions, whether we like to admit it or not. That's just the way we're built. It's not about what type of personality. We're not going to get into the Myers-Briggs or any of those other kind of personality profiles. That's not what it is. And it's not the opposite of IQ. Your native intelligence is not the same as your emotional intelligence. They do not go together. You can use those to bolster each other. And luckily for us, emotional intelligence is learnable. So
yeah, absolutely. And
so that's what EQ is not.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Jeff, for the group, doing the self-exploration of your personality, again, has the potential to enhance your emotional intelligence, because they do work in harmony, because it's that idea of self-knowledge, right? That those things beneath the surface.
One of the things that surprised me when I got involved with doing this work with 6 seconds is another preferred partner. One of their clients is the Marine Corps, and they're teaching emotional intelligence to their line officers and non-commissioned officers. So the Marine Corps uses it.
Yeah, wow. So guys, what you're looking at here is what we consider to be the model that we use in our company, as well as our preferred partner, 6 seconds, to really kind of show you what lies inside of this. It goes beyond just Jeff and Eric coming on and doing a webinar saying, hey, this is what we think, this is how it typically goes. Because inside of the model of emotional intelligence, there are what we call 3 life pursuits. And you can look here on the screen and you can see know yourself, is one, choose yourself is another, and then the third is give yourself. And each of those life pursuits house competencies. These are the tools that we teach people to use, that learnable side, so that in their everyday life, whether it's in the personal or professional or educational, wherever it may be, they're making, they have the opportunity to make themselves sort of masters at managing thought and emotion, or the blending of that thinking and feeling for those optimal decisions. Because I have yet to, and maybe I'll be shocked here at some point in the future, but I've yet to meet anyone as a client or a participant that said to me, I really like to make bad decisions. So with that, I'm going to show you guys some of the competencies that are housed. Again, in the life pursuit for know yourself, and that's kind of straightforward, right? These are competencies that relate to, I have affectionately called the inside job. This is how well you're able to say, hey, I know how I tick, I know how I operate. And it's born out of things like recognizing patterns. And more than likely, all of us can say, hey, Eric, you know, you gave that example about the freeway and being cut off in traffic. Man, I tell you what, whenever that happens to me, I typically do and fill in the blank. Now, what's powerful is if you can get to a place where you can go, all right, I know what I typically do in this situation. I've got enough history, enough data around it. Now, what do I need to do to make sure that it's a positive outcome versus a negative one? The other one inside of there is enhance emotional literacy. This is a great journey, and we're going to show you something here in a little bit that really can help. But it's basically being able to be literate with your emotions, meaning that, hey, when somebody talks about joy, like Jeff did a moment ago, you can say, yeah, I understand what joy is. I know what feeling it elicits. I know how I operate inside of it. You're literate. Other emotions are in that regard. And the more emotionally literate you are, the better you're going to be able to manage it. And again, toward the whole goal of making an optimal decision. Choose yourself life pursuit is really about what you're going to do with what you know. That's kind of how I take it. Consequential thinking is one of those. That's a pretty straightforward one. Navigate emotions. So what do you do? How do you handle it when you get surprised by an emotion that maybe you haven't felt in a long time, or maybe one you don't like, or maybe one that you're super excited about? Intrinsic motivation. That thing inside of you that drives you. The thing that makes you go, you know what? I'm doing this because I want to get to X, Y, and Z because it's important to me, versus maybe being impacted by an outside force, whether it be a school or a job or a family member, a boss, whatever. And then optimism, a very key one, especially in the time we're in now. That's there to help you navigate times like we're in now. And then the last life pursuit with this competencies is to give yourself. This is kind of the purpose-driven why part of you. It's where you determine what are my overarching motivations in the bigger picture. What am I pursuing that's bigger than me? So develop empathy. Powerful one. And by the way, guys, empathy is a two-way street. It's empathy you give others, and it's empathy that you give yourself.
That's the hard one.
Amen. Both Jeff and I can attest to that. So think of it in terms of, you may be able to give somebody a break who says, hey, I failed at something, and you remember what it felt like to fail at it, right? But how do you do it for yourself? It's a lot harder, as Jeff just noted. And then the last competency there is pursue noble goals. Jeff, I'm going to put you on the spot because I think you have an outstanding noble goal. Give an example of what your noble goal is and how it connects here.
Okay. My noble goal is to find the art in people, to help people find the art of themselves. Which that doesn't mean art like painting or something like that, but I believe that everybody has something inside them that's special, that's worthwhile. Uh, I use this example all the time. At our local Kroger store, which I got to give Kroger's credit, they hire a lot of people with disabilities. And well, he's not young anymore. He's probably 40. His name's Alex, and he has Down syndrome. And he's a bagger. He brings the carts in from the parking lot and things like that. His art, his spatial thing inside is he makes everybody happy around him. So my wife and I will actually wait in a little bit longer line for him to bag our groceries. And I talked to him about that. I let him know that that's a spatial thing about him. So that's what my noble goal is. And it's something that is in every part of my life. You just don't turn it off and on. It's always there.
And we really believe that the pursuit of a noble goal really lifts a lot of these other competencies as well. It creates a very resolute pursuit. So let's talk a little bit about it in action. Think about
one more.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
You see the know, choose, and give. We sometimes shorten that to KCG. Know, choose, give. We just use those initials.
Okay. So when you think about know yourself, it's kind of that question of what am I feeling? What's going on inside of me? The choose part is what options do I have? And then lastly, there, forgive yourself. What do I really want? What's really driving me? Again, I think you can see the connection there to why a noble goal and empathy are so important in that area. And here's the great part, guys. This model, this EQ in action, can be applied in your work pursuit, in your educational pursuit, and your family pursuits. It's the challenging part, especially on the early side, is developing a practice of it. Right now, it might be kind of clunky to you because you maybe haven't heard about it before or heard about it in this way. But what we have found in the clients that we've worked with and individual people that we worked with, once they get to that place where they practice this, it becomes a really powerful tool for them. And alignment. Alignment's pretty straightforward, right? You can think of that know area, the know yourself, as the what we do. That's action. And then the choose is how we do it, choice. And then the why we do it under the give yourself, that's our purpose. And then the sweet spot there in the middle of EQ. So what I'm going to do before I get into the next set of slides, pause for a second. We can take a little bit of a breather. What questions would you have for Jeff or I about what we've looked at so far before we head into the next round? And Jeff, you want to monitor the chat a little bit? Feel free to type anything you like as we kind of pause for a minute or two.
Well, there's a question. We'll have to check on whether the slides are available because some of those are copyrighted by 6 seconds. So we'll check into that.
Actually, Jeff, what I would tell you is we are recording the sessions.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So you guys will have the ability to go back, whether it's Friday of this week or Tuesday of next week, and review to take a look.
They're on the Spirit of EQ YouTube page.
Yeah, we'll have that up there probably no later than Wednesday of this week. But what other questions, Jeff? I'll let you kind of peruse those.
A couple more examples of noble goals. More daily is preferred. Well, with the daily part, when you develop your noble goal, it's in everything you do. It's what gets you up in the morning. So a noble goal is something that you develop over time. I really have never met anybody when we first talked about a noble goal that could write it down right then. It could take weeks, months. I know some people that's taken a year or more to develop it. So Eric, I think you said something the other day when we were doing a podcast about what makes you angry has something to do with your noble goal?
Yeah, actually, not anger, but I was going to put Jeff on the spot because he does live this out, guys. And I can say it because obviously I'm around him a bit because I'm a business partner, but he mentioned that helping people find the art in themselves, right? How many of you think he's going to get to a place where he's found all the people he can find the art in themselves?
Never.
Not going to happen, right? Because
Mhm.
he's not going to get to every human being. But you know what? I've observed him, whether it's in podcast recordings, when we're interviewing people, he's on purpose about that. He's trying to find it. He wants that in the recording. I think that's kind of that daily thing. It's like it's front of mind for you. I got to find an opportunity. And I would say, guys, Jeff would be the kind of person that if he happened to be at the grocery store, at a restaurant, he's thinking about it, right? Now, yours may be totally different. It may have nothing. Yeah.
That wasn't the way when I first came up with my noble goal. It goes back to practice.
Aha, see, humility in action. So
Are we
Jeff,
okay to talk, or can we not talk?
no, that's fine. That's fine. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I mean, it's just all. So I was just going to comment for everybody. I mean, one of the things that I think everybody can do to understand if their goals are noble or not is check in with your wife or your significant other, because they'll tell you whether you're on track or not in a lot of cases. I
Well
mean,
said.
I mean, when you're just like working around the house or whether you're going grocery shopping, I mean, there's always that significant other that can really help guide you.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for that. And I will tell you guys, you know, Jeff had asked about we were recording one of our episodes, and a wise person some years ago, basically, I think I heard him at a conference or something. I think it was Andy Stanley, quite frankly, and he said that look for the thing that breaks your heart, and then you'll more than likely find where your purpose is. And you know, when you say break your heart, you know, it kind of, in some ways, connotates sadness. And there's an element to that, but there's also that element of like something that you see that you can't get it out of your head. You can't scratch it enough to get the itch away. Those are just clues. You may have a different process and a different method of approaching it, but I think the bottom line is it definitely is of value to have it. It definitely is a value.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned our podcast, and we don't make any money from it. We're not monetized or anything with those. We have a couple of podcasts, Spirit of EQ podcast, about Noble Goal, actually about all these competencies, if you would like to dig deeper.
So Jeff, I'm looking at the chat. We talked about what am I feeling? What options do I have? What was the third one again? I think that I'm going to have to go back. So bear with me, guys. What do I really want?
Yes, we should. Yeah. Okay. Then I'm looking at the chat too, and I've heard this question is giving me some pause. How does premeditation of an act play into EQ? I've never heard a question quite like that. I'm struggling with that one. Do you have a response to that one, Eric? It's a very interesting question.
Yeah. Premeditation. And again, when I think of premeditation, I kind of go down the path of I've decided I'm going to do it, and it's a foregone conclusion. If I were talking to somebody that had a premeditated motivation on something, I would ask them to pause and reflect a bit more in curiosity about that premeditated decision. And I know that premeditated can be negative, it could be positive, and on and on and on. But it might mean that somebody is going on more of a react mode as much what has motivated them. And I'll give you an example. You may have someone that you are working with who embarrassed you in a meeting. and your thought is, I'm angry as you know what, and I'm going to take care of him in the next meeting. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get back at him. That's premeditated, right? Because you've already planned it. It's going to happen. I would say to that person, well, let's stop for a minute. I'm not trying to talk you out of doing it, but let's stop and be curious. Why do you think they embarrassed you in the meeting? What do you think their motivation was? Where do you think it comes from? How would it look for you if you returned fire, if you returned the embarrassment? Because in the end, processing it through with curiosity, you might find, no, a premeditated act like that is not going to further my life or maybe the organization's. One example, guys, that's not designed to solve that, but that's probably the take that I would have on it.
I agree.
All right. So in the spirit of time as we go, we'll get back to our wonderful slides. And Jeff's going to take you down a little bit of a journey in something that, sorry guys, is my screen not cooperating. It's going to look a little different to your eyes. Okay. And I always butcher this guy's name, Jeff. Do you have that one down in your vocab?
I believe it's Plutchik.
All right, I'll take it. So Plutchik.
Okay. This is his version of emotions. It's kind of an emotional map. You can get some that is like this, but they actually have more. But it's very interesting if you look at how those petals of this flower are. Let's say you start in the middle with rage, okay? And you see it's the bright red there. And then as you move out a little bit, the rage turns to anger. Okay, you're not raging anymore, but you're angry about it. And then you go a little bit further out, you're annoyed, you know. So it's these emotions are on a continuum of from not as strong to very strong. You look at terror. Okay, you know, terror, you're locked up, you can't do anything. Fear, not quite as much. And then apprehension, you know there's something there that you need to be aware of, but you're just not sure of what it is. So just think about how these emotions run, depending on how strong they are. You know, what is it that is triggering the emotion?
So Jeff, if I can interrupt you,
Yeah.
Can these also flow in the opposite direction? Meaning they start off light, if you will, and then move more toward more intense?
Yeah, you know, okay, let's look at the annoyance, anger, rage. You have a coworker that every day they come in and they burn the popcorn in the microwave. The first day they do it, you're annoyed. Who likes the smell of the burnt popcorn in the microwave? But then they do it again. 2 or 3 times this week, they burn the popcorn. So now you're getting angry. The emotion is ramping up. And then finally you get into the rage because not only did they burn the popcorn, then they heated up broccoli and fish in the microwave. And they do that every day. And it is just driving you, this minor thing that just once or twice is annoyance, but now it's every day or multiple times during the day. Now you're at rage.
Hey,
so this,
Jeff, I'm going to interrupt you again. I'm so sorry, but you hit on a really good area there. All right. The no, choose, give, right? So that individual, you know yourself, right? You example, you recognize what you're feeling, what your emotions are. The choose yourself, right? Is that idea of, okay, what options do I have about this? So guys, hopefully you're seeing that there's this methodology and pattern that you can take depending on where you may land on that map. So sorry to interrupt you there, Jeff, but that was
well, one to David, there's nothing wrong with broccoli and fish. It's just when it's overcooked in the microwave. Okay. And then somebody asked, would an example of a noble goal be as we recently read an assignment, that we should start with the end to be the kind of person we want to be remembered as. That's interesting, because one of the exercises I use when I'm coaching someone and they're working on their noble goal, I call it the movie of their life. Okay, so just bear with me for just a minute. From today back, that script has already been written. You can't change it, but from today forward, you can write the script for your life. And what do you want people to be saying at your retirement or at your funeral? How do you want to be remembered? So that is a very good thing to think. And then also somebody posted a link to the Plutchik model. Yeah, it's easily found on Google. So,
hello.
Yeah.
Excuse me. As far as the emotions are concerned, as an individual, walk into the room, the person burning the popcorn. What I find is a lot of that emotion isn't directed at that individual who's burning the popcorn. It's directed at a person at home, or another person who's like, okay, where is all this negative emotion coming from? My situation is, it's not even the individual who's transferring this negative emotion to someone else who has no clue of why. It's the individual receiving all this negative emotion. So it's like the third person in the chain saying, how are they supposed to react down the line, trying to figure out why is this person so negative and bringing all this animosity to me? Because to me, in my workplace, it's never the individual that is doing or causing the problem is getting the brunt of the emotion. Okay. It's the individual outside of it that's trying to say, okay, where's this coming from? That's it.
When Eric was going over those competencies, there's a couple of them that are not just for you. Enhance emotional literacy. That's, obviously learning what your emotions are, but then how well are you reading the emotions of the people around you? Are you paying attention to them? So emotional literacy in others. Then the next one in that same category is recognizing patterns. Why is this person always reacting this way? That's beyond you, when you start doing that. And then the other one in the choose part is navigating the emotions. So if you have that person that is causing these problems for someone else, and then that person is transferring it to you, how do you navigate that? How do you get through it? And I think that's what you're talking about, Maurice, that it's not just your emotions that you need to pay attention to. You need to pay attention to what's going on in people around you.
And I would also add too, one of the things that, we talked about at the beginning about curiosity and about leaving judgment to the end, meaning you've exhausted your curiosity. We all know, especially in 2020, man, there's a lot of people that are going solo. They're isolated, right? And just think of the power of, no, you're not coming to them, tell them how they should live their life or where they should go, where they should, all those things. But just maybe some of those powerful questions like, hey, I'm not trying to judge or anything. I just wanted to know where's some of the anger coming from. And it's cool if you don't want to talk about it, but I just wanted to know, because maybe it's something I could help with, right? Showing that empathy, asking them questions, because maybe they don't have anybody asking them. Maybe they don't have anybody that is interested, or they don't maybe think that they are. But great question. Great question. All right. So, Jeff, should I move on to the next slide?
Yeah. I think that would be good.
So we're looking at basic messages, right? And this is all to further your literacy around those emotions again. So as we took a look at the first one, Jeff, you want to tackle that one and I'll follow you?
Yeah, anger. What is in the way? What is keeping me from getting done what I want done? Or what is keeping me from having my way? So that's what anger is. That's the basic thing it's telling you. There's something there that you need to be aware of that is going to be a roadblock or a barrier to where you want to end up. It could be, it could be anything.
So anticipation, what important thing is coming? Again, just a basic message. It's not the only message that it could be sending you, but that's typically a basic one.
Okay, joy is very interesting. If you're feeling joy, there's something going on around you that is making you feel very good. So sometimes you feel joy, but you don't know what it is. So take a minute and examine that. It could be that, you know, you're feeling joy because of a song you heard. So you might want to file that back and go, if I'm having a bad day, I might want to pull that song up and listen to it. It could be as simple as that. But what is it that you want to keep having happen? And sometimes it's hard to identify that.
I think there's a great message in there too, guys, about being very deliberate about finding those things that give you things like joy so that you can go to them in those times when the road is tough.
And make sure they're the things that give you joy, not what somebody else says should give you joy.
Yeah, and the underlying message within all of that is it should make your life better.
Mm-hmm.
So look at trust. What do you want to embrace? What do you want to hold on to tightly? That's a key message that trust brings.
You know, fear is, what is at risk? What is there that is going to damage me? When we talked about the bear earlier, I'm at risk physically, but maybe one of those down the line degrees of fear, like maybe apprehension. Maybe there's something there that's at risk. It's not at much. You might have apprehension about a new job. You're not going to die from that, but it's okay to be a little bit apprehensive because you're going to a new job. But it's really powerful and helpful to know that's why you're feeling that way.
And have you guys, hopefully you've noticed that these messages are designed to help you. I think that's an underlying part of the theme here. Surprise, what is unexpected? Pretty straightforward.
Sadness, what? Something that is important to you that you're losing. It could be a person. It could be a relationship. It could be anything. But what is it that's making you sad? I think a lot of times, and I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. Lost my brain there for a second. But I think a lot of times people are feeling depressed because they're sad about something and they don't know what it is. And then once you can identify what it is, you'll be able to move on from that.
Disgust. This is a really straightforward one. And typically disgust follows when you see a rule that's been broken. And maybe if it's been broken more than once, it might be something that elicits that. So I'm going to exit out of the screen here, the share, and let's talk a little bit about it. And if you want to type in the chat, what are some of your experience with some of those emotions that either you saw in the wheel or those basic messages? And let's go the route of, you know, maybe think of some positives that you've been able to use with those emotions that might help those that are maybe your classmates, coworkers, whatever they may be, people who are you have in common. And if you want to type in the chat there, and Jeff, if you want to monitor that. So what are some of your experiences with those emotions again? And think of it in maybe the most positive light that you can, just for this exercise. And if you guys would feel better to unmute yourself, you can feel free to verbalize if you'd prefer that.
I've got really big fingers, so I think I'll talk.
All right, sure.
I was just going to mention, you know, on a lot of the projects that I run at Boston Scientific, typically for big projects or even small projects, there's always in the beginning, there's a lot of anxiety in the room typically. And so I mean, the books that we've read in this course, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, these books that Dr. Alliday has us read, you know, Who Moved My Cheese, just got done with that one. And, you know, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the listening with empathy, all of those, all the lessons we're learning in these books are amazing. A lot of them have to do, they're stitched right in with emotional IQ, being an active empathy listener, right? Really trying to help for win-win situations. I get in situations all the time where people, they already have an idea of what they want to do, and we haven't even discussed like the current value stream map of what's going on, right, to optimize the process. So I think a lot of this has to do with really opening your mind to listening and not reacting, just really trying to listen and put yourself in their shoes first so that you can get to that next step of trying to work towards a win-win situation.
A response instead of a reaction.
Right.
Yeah, great. That's
Okay.
great. And
So
go ahead, Jeff.
somebody said anger. Coworkers saying I couldn't accomplish something. They used anger as a fuel to succeed. So they used that emotion. In this case, they chose the better path, okay, of using anger as a motivation. That's amazing. That's really good.
Yeah.
Then 3 people had anticipation about good things coming to their life, a successful launch of a product, anticipation of furthering education. And you're using the emotion of anticipation to be optimistic. That's what you're really turning that into. And that's great.
And there's another thing, guys, I would also point out to you, especially in the time that we've been in 2020. If we can be on purpose about our emotions and about how they can serve us well, it's not going to fix COVID-19, but it'll make you well despite COVID-19. And since I don't know when we're going to solve this pandemic thing, I want to be well in the meantime, right? I don't want to be that guy that can only be good when things are going my way and the wind is in my sails. I also want to be that guy who's well when things aren't great. That's inspiration, right? That's what people really, really want and need. And you guys have an opportunity, and you listed some things. I mean, that anger, that was a great example of managing that emotion. Do we have any others, Jeff, before I put us back in?
School, work, fear about school, work, and family. So using the fear apprehension to make sure that you're where you're at with those things. That's great. So, okay, I think that's all of them for now.
All right. So as we go back, as we're getting close, guys, to we're going to look at something that's a little more related to sort of the career work environments. And I know that you all are in different stages of that, whether you're already well into your career or whether it is something that you're just kind of getting into. Think about for a moment someone who brought out your best. And then think of it in terms of these questions. What did it feel like to be with that person? And what did that person do to inspire those feelings? So I'm going to give you a minute or two to kind of think of an example of what did it feel like when you were thinking about that person that brought out your best? And then what did they do that inspired those feelings? And then Jeff, I'm going to ask you once again, if you don't mind, can you look at the chat?
Yes, I can.
And if you are so compelled, if it's better for you to go vocal, just unmute yourself. And it's whenever you've got that in your head to express.
Someone said that they felt safe.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I think a person who brought out my best was an individual who challenged me. First, I took it as as an insult, but when I really reflect on it, it was my personal, the fact that I felt that I was incompetent, and I had to redirect it, understand what they were doing, and then accept them as teaching me something. I had to be open to it, and that person brought out the best in me, because at the end, I was taught something that I did not know, and I became a better person from it.
Ah, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. We've got a few here. Frustrated at how far they challenged me. But they challenged good. They were open and unjudgmental. I no longer felt that I did not matter. That is so important. That's where your noble goal comes in. When your noble goal is working, you try to make people matter. So an owner of a firm took time out to teach me engineering. They had trust. A teacher in high school told me that I needed to pursue higher education while still in high school. I felt empowered to do my best and grow as an individual. Those are great.
That's awesome. That's awesome, guys. So what I'd like you to think about,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
It's words of affirmation, recognition from peers at work.
So what I'd like you guys to think about is you just use those examples. Who could you be that for tomorrow or next week? Or maybe even after this session? What short note, what email could you send? What phone call could you make to be that for someone else? Think about how powerful that would be. So here's the thing, right? Some of the top issues at work, and I'm gonna let you look at the two-sided coin here of engaging talent and under pressure. This is familiar territory. But the reality is that we need people, and we need talented people. The key job of that leader is, what are they going to do, in so many words, to equip these folks, and maybe some of those folks are you, to be successful? I really love this statement, or this question, I should say. Why is the soft stuff so hard? We do spend a whole lot of time on developing those skills around financial and technical, but it's the people relational stuff that typically are the big issues. Now, before 2020, before COVID-19, Jeff and I would tell you, when we would interact with clients, sometimes they were a little hesitant about. They would use terms like, "Oh, you're talking about soft skills." I know, but can't we just send them to a seminar? But it's interesting, and I wish it were a different way, but we don't hear that much anymore. It's really brought it home that it's a people thing. And the best companies, the best organizations, best leaders are the ones that are leveraging emotional intelligence, because you're only going to get so skilled in technical. This other one is a much deeper river, if you will.
Okay.
Here's some things. Go ahead.
Okay. I think this one was mine. Yeah. Okay. So studies have shown that EQ has twice the power of IQ to predict importance, and that's in an individual. In this next statement, EQ is also a better predictor than employee skill, knowledge, or expertise. Before I got involved in this work, I started out as a small service company, and then we ended up being a large regional. We were in 7 states. And along the way, our owner was very interested in the soft skills, like Eric just mentioned. And we came to discover that when we were hiring somebody, we were not hiring people for their hard skills anymore. If they had them, that was great, but we figured out we can teach them the technical aspect of their job. What was hard to do is get the people that understood emotional intelligence. That's actually how I got into this work, because we started doing that. And when we started hiring people on that basis, our company just took off. That's when we got into this growth into all the other states. So the emotional intelligence of the company, the emotional intelligence of the employee, the higher that is, the better all the success factors are going to be in the company. The individual will be happier, more productive. The company culture will be happier, more productive. And you're in business to make money. And usually the bottom line will show that everybody being more productive and working together and not having all these things that distract make the business atmosphere so much better. That's just something to keep in mind as you move forward.
Yeah, and I would also add for you as well that you know, these 2 sessions that you are doing with us are not going to make the difference of whether or not you necessarily will get a job or be promoted or get a raise or a bonus. But I can tell you, if you're able to articulate to a talent recruiter or to a direct manager that you see the power and the importance of emotional intelligence, they're going to perk up, because this is not just information that we kind of pulled out of our archives. You can go and do research on your own. There's a lot of organizations are discovering that this is a key factor. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're a senior level executive or if you're an individual computer, or I should say an analyst or contributor. You apply this, it will make a difference in career history. It's going to be better. You're just going to, I mean, you're going to be stronger. That's without a doubt. So as we move on, Jeff, I think you were going to tackle this one too.
Yeah, this just is showing you from a study, people get hired in the normal way of thinking for their intelligence, their IQ, their job skills possibly. But to be promoted, it's their emotional intelligence skills that get you promoted within a company, because those skills are the ones that are going to show through to your manager, to people around you, that this person is equipped to handle more responsibility because they're emotionally intelligent. And I think I've seen that. We were the same way with our employees. The ones that were highly emotional intelligence were the ones that advanced through the company quicker.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to the next one, Eric.
Yeah. So this particular graph, both of them, a little different in nature, but again, illustrating that power of EQ in performance. And it's pretty easy to figure, right? That the higher your EQ, the greater your performance. And that's not really mysterious, is it? Right? Because it's just people who make better decisions typically are getting better results. I mean, we can look around our lives, personal and professional, and see that. It's pretty straightforward. So, Jeff, our feelings are our most genuine paths to knowledge.
I think there's 2 paths to knowledge. There's one path that is required of you. It might be to get more job skills, things like that you have to do. It's the knowledge that you want to take the path to that is coming from your emotions. I want to learn more about this. I feel strongly that is important to me. So those are the things that you really want to explore. I feel strongly that I want to make a difference in other people's lives. That's the path to learn knowledge about making a difference in other people's lives. The path to knowledge, like to do your job, is vitally important also. But when you do both those paths, that's what makes you more of a I feel, as a complete person, a change maker, whether in your business, your family, your neighborhood, at the grocery store. You don't know where that change can happen, but when you put those 2 paths together, I think that's when you make a change.
And one of the things I'll tell you as we're getting ready to close out here tonight is the reality of this idea is rooted around, how would I say it? It's rooted around your ability to take the message and the data that's being given to you on a daily basis and leverage that in your growth. Because those emotions are there to communicate something to you. And again, for your benefit. The key is will we slow down enough to be curious enough to find out what are they telling me? And then moving forward with a decision. So in closing tonight, guys, we really appreciate your time. And as a parting part, we hope that you guys will be able to join us tomorrow. Your schedules will allow. This is being recorded, so it will be something you can go back to for review. And we've really enjoyed our time with you. Any questions before we close out tonight for Jeff or I?
Thanks. Thanks.
You're
for-
welcome.
Very
And
well.
So,
have-
just to be clear, tomorrow is a continuation of this or a duplicate?
no, it's a continuation.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we
it's
do
a
need to be here
continuation.
tomorrow. Okay, very good.
It is.
Thank you.
It is the proverbial part 2.
And if you have questions, probably info@spiritofEQ would probably be the best, wouldn't it, Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, if you have any questions for us, info@spiritofEQ.com.
So with that, I will let you guys get on with your evening. It was great seeing you all, or most of you. I couldn't get you all on the phone, but I know you're in the spirit, and thank you for participating. That's a big deal, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
Take care.
Thanks,
Take
gentlemen.
care. Have a good
one. Tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you, Eric and Jeff. We'll see you tomorrow. Appreciate it.
All right.